Hi, I'm Thomas, and I'm going to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is steadily becoming a more common method of payment and a more common fixture in today's economy. However, it can be hard to find explanations of Bitcoin that are accessible for people without computer science backgrounds or any experience in the field. Due to its potential influence on our lives in the near future, I think that it's important that such a resource exists. That's why I'm making this video as a simple explanation of what Bitcoin is and how it works on a very general level. Bitcoin is meant to emulate cash in the digital world. More traditional forms of digital payment all differ significantly from cash in a couple major ways. Primarily, they all use trusted third parties to facilitate transactions. Things like PayPal, Amazon, and even your banks are all intermediaries for the money you give to someone else. Along with these organizations, you lose anonymity. These third parties require a good deal of personal information, including bank or credit card information. Transactions can therefore be tied back to you relatively easily using this information, while cash, on the other hand, is much more difficult to trace. Bitcoin aims to emulate these cash properties in the digital world. However, there are some limitations that Bitcoin has to overcome. Because there are no physical objects representing Bitcoins or any organization or mint to control the flow of Bitcoins or verify transactions, the issues of reliability and trust become important, and we must address these. So, why can we trust Bitcoin? Much of its credibility relies on the tool of hashing, or hash functions. A hash function takes in some data, like a text file, and outputs a new value. The key to hash functions is that they are one-directional. If you give the same hash function the same text file multiple times, you will always get back the same value. However, there is no easy way for anyone to figure out the contents of the text file using only the returned value. Bitcoin uses this to store a list of previous transactions in something called the blockchain. One block is composed of a group of transactions, as well as a timestamp and other information including the hashed value of the previous block in the chain. This leads to a comprehensive list of all transactions in the history of Bitcoin, common to all users of Bitcoin. There's one final important idea that you need to understand for Bitcoin, which is the concept of proof of work. Proof of work, in this case, means that it takes significant work and time for a computer to add a new block to the blockchain. This is made possible by some specific properties of the blocks. One of the extra pieces of information in the block is the nonce. A nonce is essentially arbitrary information that has no real meaning. However, because the hashed value of a block relies on all of the data in the block, changing the nonce also changes the hashed value. Bitcoin only accepts blocks with hash values that fit certain criteria, like starting with a certain number of zeros. Because hashing is a one-way function, it takes significant work through trial and error to find the correct nonce that will give an acceptable hash for the block. Basically, this means that it takes a while to verify a group of new transactions and add them to the list of accepted transactions, or the blockchain. If someone wanted to alter the history of Bitcoin, for example, to say that they had never spent their Bitcoin, then the information in some of the blocks would change. This means the hash values of those blocks would also change. They would probably no longer be acceptable according to the proof of work requirements, and the next block would certainly disagree regarding the changed block's hashed value. In order to legitimize such a fraud, someone would need to redo the hashing on all blocks after and including the changed block through the end of the blockchain. Because we know that it takes work, and therefore time, to find valid hashes, this is not a trivial task. The person trying to recreate history would need to redo all the work faster than the rest of the Bitcoin community can continue to add valid new blocks onto the blockchain. This is only possible if more than half of the Bitcoin community is in on the scam, so it is highly unlikely. It's also, therefore, not something we really need to worry about. Making sure that a transaction is valid, that is, the user giving Bitcoins to another actually owns the Bitcoins that are being given, is also taken care of. Because all transactions are public, Bitcoin can check against past transactions, whose validity is guaranteed by the proof of work system we just discussed, to make sure the user actually owns the relevant Bitcoins. In this way, Bitcoin avoids using any third parties or central organizations. It also only requires use of public IDs. No personal information or bank information is required. However, the users can still trust that Bitcoin transactions are safe and valid due to the system of the blockchain. I hope this has given you some idea of how Bitcoin works and why it's possible to trust a currency that isn't backed by a government or organization. Thanks.